first of all, we are the first, which is that there are so many things government needs to tackle. The resources. We have been given a mandate by His Excellency Governor Godwin Noregase Obaseki that when it comes to education reform, we must always tell the truth to the good people of Edo State. And so for us, it's not about whitewashing. It's not about hiding things. We are very proud of what we have accomplished in the last 6+ years of Edo Best. We know where we started from. We know where we are now. And we also know that we still have some ways to go. And that's why part of the goal of this press briefing today is to essentially appeal to various stakeholders to join hands with us to make sure that in the next 1 year that we make considerable progress, particularly in the area of learning outcomes. We have set a goal for ourselves since 2018 that by the time any of our pupils, whether in public or private schools, are leaving primary 1, they should know how to read and write. But because we know that we have, even in secondary school, we have children who cannot read and write or read and write fluently across whether basic or secondary. We are putting in a lot of effort and attention to learning this academic year. And so we have already sent a word of a notice to our school heads that any teacher or principal or executive principal or headmaster or headmistress who, because they want to show good results, are not reporting the true state of affairs in terms of the academic abilities of their learners, sanctions will be meted out swiftly and severely. There will be no tempered justice with mercy, because we have children who are not at the level they ought to be due to no fault of theirs. And so as a ministry, we are very committed, because in April of this year, His Excellency Governor Obaseki launched the Edo State Learning Agenda. And the purpose of the Learning Agenda is to keep all of us in check. We must now have targets that we need to meet. And we have also assured our teachers and school heads that if their students are not doing well, they are not going to be penalized for it. We want them to report it so that we can all sit down and figure out a way to provide remediation. And this is one of the reasons His Excellency approved the Agency for Adult Non-Formal and Continuing Education, because that agency also has a role to play with respect to remediation. So I want to give a quick overview of some of what we did last term across the board. Last year, Edo Best 2.0 was launched in 2021, in June 2021. And the scope of Edo Best 2.0 is across the sector, from basic to tertiary. Before 2021, Edo Best was just only at the basic level. And that was why then it was called Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation. So since 2021, Edo Best is no longer an acronym. It's just an aspiration that as a state, we want to be the best at all levels of education. So with Edo Best 2.0, in the last 1 year, we have really focused attention on secondary and TVET technical schools. So whereas basic education is free and compulsory, secondary education over time has suffered neglect, because by the time successive governments have invested in basic education, there is a tendency that secondary is then abandoned. So for secondary and TVET, what we've focused on in the last 1 year was to ensure that we have a funding model in our secondary schools that would ensure that with or without adequate government support, our secondary schools will continue to function at a high quality level. And let me pause to thank the parents, the guardians, and then our personnel in our secondary school system for the fantastic work they've done in the last 1 year. We came in and we said, Principals were charging between 12 to 38,000 per student for all kinds of fees. And students were also expected to bring mop, to bring broom, to bring cleaning agents and all of those things. We now said no. We are going to have a flat fee of 4,000 naira. 4,000 naira that we address some of the core operational expenses at the school. And this money is collected by the school and is also spent at the school. So there was none that was sent to the Ministry of Education or to any of the boards. And so I was quite elated when I got a report at the end of the last academic session that over 600 million naira was raised through this process. So what this has done is that if you go to our secondary schools across the state, you will find a semblance of discipline, a semblance of order. With the introduction of scripted lessons, it also meant that whether in urban or rural schools, everybody is learning the same content, everybody is learning the same topic at the same pace. In fact, I've gotten reports of some students who were going to school, who came to Benin to rent a room so that they can attend urban schools. When they go home during the holidays to their villages, they discover that it was the same content they were learning. And so some have decided to go back and go to the schools in their community so that they can be closer to home. Those are some of the things we are successes that we are recording. Part of the reform also meant that we now have a standardized timetable. So we had to sit down at the level of the ministry with all the boards and all the teachers to say, what is the national curriculum? Based on the national curriculum, how many topics are we supposed to cover by the end of a term? We broke it down, and as a result of that, we were able to now determine the number of weeks that we must have in a term and the number of hours. So at a minimum, we can assure the parents of Edo State in our public school system that their children are getting at a minimum 400 hours of instruction time. So if you look at our timetable, we broke it down into the 3 domains of learning. So 66% of the school timetable time is dedicated to academics, 14% for sporting activities. So we also introduced a very structured sporting time in our schools. Every Wednesday, by the second half of the day, kids are involved in sports. We introduced co-curricular activities. We brought back school clubs, and we have also streamlined school clubs. Because when we started, we noticed that there was a proliferation of requests by different NGOs and stakeholders, although they meant well. But when different groups are requesting for students to be taken out of school during school hours to attend one seminar or the other, and we don't have any way of measuring the positive effects or impact of such seminar attendance on our students, we then had to now create what we call a social impact day. And we have told everybody out there that on social impact day, if you want to hold a seminar in any school, go to that school and hold your seminar. But we will no longer allow children, our students, to be pulled out of school anyhow during school hours to be attending all kinds of seminars because they are losing instruction time. To also support learning outcomes, we have also introduced what we call every day. We introduce the mental math. It's the first thing that students do every morning to help them develop an affinity for numbers. In the afternoon, first period after break, they do spelling, mental spelling, every day. Then, before the last period of the day, they do mental world affairs or general knowledge. Because we also realize that in this whole TikTok generation, we have quite a number of our adolescent learners who don't really know much about what's going on in the world around them. And so it was important to do that. And part of the innovation we have added this academic year is to, under general knowledge, to also include sections on hygiene and health awareness. Because we found that as a society, we routinely engage in habits that are very dangerous to our health out of ignorance. So our students are now going to learn that eating out of a cellophane bag is very dangerous. These cellophanes are not meant for carrying food or using toilet roll to wrap cake. Those toilet roll is not meant to wrap food. So these are some of the things we want to be teaching. So values was a big part of what we did last year, and we are continuing it this year. We have introduced what we call Community Service Day. We are going to now be requiring every student from primary 4 on Community Service Day, they must go out and do community service. So we want to teach them how to give back at a very young age. Other things that we introduced last year was inter-house sport. It became mandatory. Every school must do inter-house sport. Every school must have school clubs. Every school must go on an excursion. We've also did graduation. We made it mandatory for schools to do graduation. And what we have found from last year's reports from our schools, particularly in the rural areas, is that graduation has become a big deal because it's giving, some of our more remote communities something to look forward to. So now the young people have an aspiration. So we are moving them away from the notion that school is a scam to them seeing the value in education and seeing how education is impacting them. In September, we have selected a few schools that we want to, at the secondary level, that we want to pilot, roll out Edo Best Digital. Edo Best Digital is our attempt to introduce digital learning to secondary schools and technical schools. As you all know, since 2018, teachers in our primary schools and more recently teachers in our junior secondary schools all have tablets, which they use to teach. At the secondary and TVET level, because these are much older children, learners, we now want to introduce tablets for both the teachers and the students. Because we still have infrastructure deficit. While government is trying to catch up on this infrastructure deficit, learning must continue. Learning must not stop. So before we are able to build laboratories, first-class laboratories in all our schools, let us utilize technology. Let us open the imagination of our students. And if we want to be honest with ourselves, we all know that quite a number of our secondary school students already have phones. They have smartphones. They have been introduced to technology already. Some of them are very conversant with Bitcoin and all the other activities online. So what we are now trying to do is to guide them properly so that they understand that you can use technology in the right way to be a productive and upright citizen. The other thing we are introducing this year is integrated learning. By this, we mean that in selected pilot schools, we are going to be collaborating with Edo Skills Agency, and we are going to reach out to various private sector companies in Edo State, where our students will go for internship. We also want to introduce them to the world of work early enough, so that from a young age, they are developing the right values, the right habits, the right appreciation for good work ethics. And they are learning how to make money, earn money incrementally. This is one of the reasons today we have this craze for overnight wealth, because we've realized that the average young person in Nigeria does not enter into the workplace until they are done with NYSC. They are already in their 20s and 30s. Whereas in other parts of the world that have more competitive economies, you find that by age 13, children are already earning little by little, and they are appreciating the value of money. So these are some of the things we want to do. What we started last year, we're going to continue with them. As I've said, this year is all about academics. It's up once September begins, it's Operation Every Child Must Read, Every Child Must Learn. We are not going to tolerate any slackers. So anybody within our education ecosystem, whether they are staff of the Ministry of Education or they are teachers in our schools, who is not ready and willing to imbibe this new direction, we are going to leave them behind. Parents, there is so many things we are planning this year. One is that has to do with parents is the Parents Council, because we have been very fortunate at the secondary and TVET levels with Old Students Association. They have really come in, they've donated so much, and they are helping us to do a lot of things in our schools. And so what we now want to do is to increase the level of involvement of our parents, because we are now at that point where we are talking about sustainability. We don't want all the efforts we have put in so far to go to waste. So the people that can ensure sustainability are not the political appointees, are not the civil servants, or the public servants. It is you, the parents, because you are the ones that are either going to benefit or suffer from a retrogression in standards. So that's why at some point this year, this term, we are going to focus on every of our schools, basic to secondary and technical, must now have a PTA, an active PTA, Parents Teachers Association. From the PTA, we are now going to form what we call the Parents Council. Every PTA chairman in each of our schools, whether public or private, is automatically representing their school on the Parents Council. And the role of the Parents Council is to work closely with the Ministry of Education on policy matters. So we believe that with this additional layer of involvement, a lot of what we have started now can be sustained and improved upon. On this note, I welcome all of you again to my office. My office is open anytime, and we look forward to engaging you. As I come to your local government, to work out of your local government, I look forward to receiving you in my office in your local government. Thank you, everyone.